Hello guys, Devaney Freeman here, and I have a really special edition of Dish with Devaney. I am interviewing, and I have here live with me, Andrea Owen. Andrea is a coach, she's a self-love advocate and published author whose bold motto is, because life is too short not to kick ass. Andrea is a proud author of 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life, which is BS-free wisdom to ignite your inner badass and live the life you deserve. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you. And my dog wants to welcome herself too. So great to be here. And I apologize for that. I did not expect this. She just wants to hog the spotlight. But I'm excited to be here to talk about the book.
Yes, I know. I got my copy and I just love it. I love the cover. Everybody needs to get a copy of this. So before we dive in, because I want to talk about some content in there, tell me a little bit like how you got to where you're at now.
Great question. I did not always live such a kick-ass life, that's for sure. I was, more specifically, I was married before. I had been in a relationship with the boy next door from when I was 17 until I was 30. And in that time, we got married in my late 20s. And about 2 years into the marriage, he had an affair with our neighbor and got her pregnant. Oh. So this was right around the time I had just turned 30 and we were ready to start trying to conceive our first child. And so it was all quite a shock. And it ended very traumatically and dramatically. And then I got into another really bad relationship, like really, really bad. And when that ended, that was really I had never been alone, really. You know, I had had a boyfriend even before him in high school. I had never been by myself. I didn't know who I was without him, without this relationship. I was horribly heartbroken. And I consider that an invitation to the rest of my life. And I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was. I call it the time in my life where I was extremely excited, but extraordinarily scared. I was terrified of what to do. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I immersed myself in everything self-help and really put myself on the fast track to learning. And what happened was I had to take radical responsibility for my life. I hadn't up until that point. Mm-hmm. I had blamed, and obviously the relationship that I was in, it wasn't that great. It was tumultuous and it was very intense. It was I call it sometimes beautiful, sometimes ugly. And, it really was not conducive to the bettering of either of our souls, myself or my ex-husband. So, I just immersed myself in growing and learning and again, had to take radical responsibility for my life. I could not any longer blame him or anyone else for my circumstances. I had created this shit life. I had. And I had to really look in the mirror and say, all right, look at what I have tolerated. Look at what I have attracted and manifested. What do I want going forward? So it was a gift also because it was very clear to me that if I could create that life, who's to say I couldn't create another life that's way, way, way better? Mm-hmm. So that's really what started me on my journey to becoming a life coach and helping other people live better lives. And really everything that I learned in those 7-8 years, I put into this book.
Nice. That's awesome. And so it was your coaching business, your first experience as being an entrepreneur and owning your own business?
Yeah, I didn't. I was not that kid that had lemonade stands. I was not. I know I feel kind of like, and everyone's like, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. And I was like, I'm over here like, not me. My parents both had like union jobs and always pushed me to get, that good job that I would stick with forever. And I was just like, no, like I always had a hard time answering to authority and I knew but I never thought like I would own my own business. So yeah, it really was my first, it was funny because I heard about life coaching before I got divorced and I'm like, that would be the coolest job ever. And my mantra back then was, because life's too short for it to not kick ass. And I remember talking to my ex-husband and I said, I think being a life coach, you go to school for it and you learn everything, but I think you probably need a lot of life experience. And I don't have that much life experience. And then it was like this bomb gets dropped. The universe was listening. I remember where I was sitting too when I was having that conversation with him. It's so funny. So yeah, be careful what you wish for. And I got it.
Yep. The universe was like, here you go.
Here you go.
Oh my goodness.
Like,
yeah. So tell me now what you do today. You work with women mostly?
Mm-hmm. I work with women who are not necessarily coming out of divorce. That's not. I mean, I think I coached a few people that were in a similar situation, but mostly I work with. What came out of all of that for me and what my experience was in hindsight, looking at how I was living my life, I was extremely controlling. I wanted to change everyone around me. And if only they would just do what I said, then everyone would be happier. So that was a problem. I was controlling. I was a perfectionist. I was I was a people pleaser. I sort of shape-shifted into whatever I thought I needed to be, and then was pissed about it. Mm-hmm. And I've always been highly ambitious and just an overachiever, and not always to the point where it served me. So I help women who don't feel like they're good enough, but who are always going, always looking at the next thing, and very fast-paced women. And that's mostly who I help, the type of woman.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's dive a little bit into your book. I want to talk about managing your inner critic. That was one of the chapters that really stood out to me. And let's talk a little bit about that to the audience of what is managing your inner critic.
Yeah, and I originally I thought I would write a whole book about that, but I have a hard time committing. It's amazing to me that I'm in a monogamous relationship. I have a hard time to one topic, and that's why there are so many. But I do mention it several times in several different chapters in the book. But basically what it is, it's our inner conversation. So it's that voice that tells us we're not good enough. You don't deserve to be here. When is everyone going to figure out we don't know what we're doing? You'll never be that good. Your hair doesn't look like Devaney's. It's ever present. And I want to preface what I'm about to say with, you can never completely eradicate it from your mind. And we still, no matter how much work you'll do on it, you'll still have the voice. But what I teach people is to manage it. Mm-hmm. And there can be a vast improvement from the conversation you're having now with the conversation that you can have in the future, because it's about learning tools and ways to just shift it, really. And you can't, it's not like getting your tonsils out. You can't make it go away forever. So, and I also invite people, especially women, to look at the conversation you're having with your friends. Mm-hmm. Are you complaining about who you are? Are you colluding with each other about your bodies? That's a really big one. Complaining about, we do this with strangers too. We'll do it in the bathroom. We'll talk about how old we are, and our crow's feet, and our thighs, and our cellulite, and our back fat, and all of these things in the gym. Mm-hmm. Women's gyms have, quite honestly, been just like a cesspool of negative conversations and negative self-talk about ourselves. So that's what I love helping people with. And really the first step there is awareness, and really just knowing that it exists. And sadly, many women, it becomes so natural that we don't even realize that it's happening. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I ask women big trigger points in their lives. And a lot of times I'll say, okay, when you step out of the shower tomorrow morning and you look in the mirror, what are you saying to yourself in the mirror? Are your eyes exactly going to go to your tummy or your problem areas, your flaws? And then what are you saying about that? Are you saying things about your cellulite, your big ass, your saggy boobs? What is it? When you're having sex with your partner with the lights on, what's the conversation that's happening? Or are you trying to keep your shirt on or be in a position where he's not going to see? Trust me, girls, he does not care about your cellulite. But also, like, for parents, if you're a mom, are you, we've all lost control with our kids and screamed at our kids. And an hour later, what are you saying to yourself about who you are as a mother, if you made a mistake? So the big triggers like that, that's where I want you to listen to the conversation that's happening in your mind. And then I have so many exercises, but one of my favorites, for sake of time here, is to just shift that conversation a little bit to make it feel better. Mm-hmm. So I'm not asking you to say affirmations. I think that we're too smart for that. I like to just tweak it to something that is a little bit better. And one of my favorites too is to not make it mean anything. So this happened. So you screamed at your kid. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mother. You know, what if it just happened? It's one of my favorite mantras. Well, that just happened. And that's it. And then you can move on from there. But really that awareness piece is huge. That's a huge step. Women don't realize how big that is. And it's like, I really want to just like, yay, if you're even aware that it's happening, that is the first most important step for you to be able to change it.
Yes, definitely. And I have personally experienced that and work with my clients with the inner critic of getting and putting yourself out there online. Because that can be really scary, and there's a lot of like, especially with social media, everybody looks like they have the perfect life or their business, and they're making 6-7 figures, and then it's kind of funny that we really have a conversation. It's like, oh no, that's not the case, and they're working their ass off. They're
working their ass off, and just on that note, I always wonder what your expenses are, because like you don't know how much anyone makes unless you see their tax records.
Exactly.
And that's why, because I also help brand new coaches too. I'm very transparent about how much money I make. Like I tell them like, here, this is how much I made this, and I had a huge jump this year, and this is how I did it. But these are my expenses. Like look at how much money I'm putting back into the business. So you never know. And I'm so glad you pointed that out, Debbie, because social media, while I think it's a wonderful tool, it has just created such a comparison trap. And we compare other people's Instagram photos to our own insides. And that is just, it's a tragedy. It really is. And we make up stories. And it happened to me just a couple of weeks ago when I was comparing myself to a colleague. And the difference is now is that, before I used to get just sucked into that rabbit hole, and I would spend like an entire afternoon or an entire day just like looking at other people who were higher up on the totem pole than me and making up that I was never going to be that way. I'm in my mid to late 30s and I should be farther along like her. I've got these 2 kids and I'm never going to be able to have the time that she does. All of this bullshit.
Yeah.
But now I can stop it, after like 10 minutes, and it's almost like, coming out like water where you're like gasping for breath. And I close the laptop and I call one of my colleagues and I laugh about it. And I'm like, oh my God, you won't believe what just happened to me.
Yeah.
Because like so now I can, just push it aside as like, well, that just happened. That's kind of funny. Oh, well, and then move on.
Yep. Yeah. Really good exercise to take note of. I mean, yeah, I can remember I'll go down that rabbit hole and then I'll see someone and then see someone else. And before you know it, it's like a few hours and you're like, what am I doing?
How is this making me a better human being? How is this bettering my business? It's not. No. So there's like research, and then we cross that line and go into like stalking, feeling like shit, just so once you get over there, go press that little X. Get out.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. Good advice with that. I want to talk about now loving yourself. You have the chapter, Loving Yourself is the New Black.
Yeah, I really think that, when I went through the life-changing experience, I had gone back to college at the time. I was going back to finally finish my Bachelor of Science degree, and they had free counseling there. And I remember I couldn't get in to see my therapist right away, so I just went into this counseling office at Cal State University and was just like, somebody help me. I mean, it was like just a couple of days after that had happened, and she was this beautiful Indian woman, and she's talking to me, and she was like the first person that I ever had met that was very evolved and had so much wisdom, and I'm taking notes frantically because I knew I wouldn't remember everything that she said, and I kept them. I still have them. And several times she talked about self-love and, you need to learn to love yourself. And I remember reading the notes later and thinking, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that looks like. Like I get it in theory, self-love, but I didn't. So I was on a mission to figure out what it meant. And really it's come down to a lot of different things. But one of them, an important one is the inner critic and managing the conversation I was having with myself. Another one was forgiving myself for past mistakes, because I could easily beat myself up for not listening to my intuition when my intuition told me not to marry him, not listening to my intuition that told me he was having an affair from the very beginning, wasting all those years. And so it was really a shift and just looking at everything as if it was a gift instead of just a crap pile of circumstances. It was about getting out of victimhood and really taking responsibility for how I was feeling. And another one is about actually, and this one I've learned more recently, feeling my feelings instead of numbing them. I'm just pulling like different ones out of the air. I don't have like a, this is how you do it. But I do have a long list. But about just not numbing my feelings. For a long time for me, it was love addiction, and I was a raging love addict. I was addicted to relationships and men and intensity. And an eating disorder for a while. And then once that ended and I healed, I started drinking too much. And then it was like, I'm just taking the edge off. Oh, I just drank a whole bottle of wine on a Tuesday. Oh, and so then I stopped. I have 2+ years of sobriety, and I'm 38 years old, and I'm just now starting to learn to feel my feelings and just feel them,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds simple, but it really, that's an aspect of self-love. And I think people confuse self-care with self-love, and there's definitely some overlap there, but it really, there is a difference. And so self-love really is about the inner work, dealing with all the stuff that's really holding you back, managing your inner critic, self-forgiveness, surrounding yourself with people who really lift you up and encourage you instead of people that will collude with your inner critic and things like that. That's just a few of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are really good tips, and self-love is really important. I'm actually doing some relationship coaching right now. Set a separation from my boyfriend of 4 years, and then now we're kind of trying to work things out, and it all starts with yourself and how you feel about yourself, and then how you communicate, and so the self-love is in all aspects of how you do business, how you have relationships, how you treat others.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much we hold in and don't realize that we have so much anger, or like we have so many things we need to forgive, unless we really tap into that and go through exercises on, how am I really treating
I have
myself?
found that, and that's another chapter in the book, is letting go of resentments. And it's, the very short way of saying it is that resentments really they will never serve you. They really, really won't. And I realized years later that I was holding on to some of them, and I had to ask myself, why am I holding on to this? It's not, the other person really doesn't give a shit usually if you're holding on to the resentment. It's not like you're punishing them, you're only punishing yourself. And so I remember sitting in a therapy with my ex-husband, and her telling me, because I was mad at him for all these things, these behaviors that he had done to me. And this was actually before we got married. And she looked right at me and said, you can either forgive him and move on with your relationship, or you can sit in this and suffer. Because really, you think you're punishing him, but you're the one that's suffering the most in this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
It stuck with me, and she was right. It absolutely, like, letting go is such a gift to you. And here's another thing too. It's not just like I'm going to check that off my list. I'm going to let it go, and then I'm free forever. No, sometimes it's a one day at a time. It's a one day at a time deal. Like, you have to let it go every day, because those feelings creep back up, and the bitterness and resentfulness, and it's a cycle. And if you don't deal with it every time it comes back up, it can be ongoing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'd love to hear your take on like spirituality and kind of how that all fits in with what you teach.
Yeah, it was interesting, Devaney. Like I wanted to write about it, and originally the chapter title was supposed to be "Find Some Kind of Spirituality for Christ's Sake," and and my editor was like, So I still, when I talk about that chapter, I still say that. But I grew up a Christian, and when I was about 15, I think, stopped going to church and never ever went back, and never had any kind of spiritual connection. I never had any kind of foundation. And the religion that I grew up in there were some beliefs where I wasn't really sure that I was on board with. So I was like, oh, forget it, but I always felt called back. And so what happened was really when I went through what I went through, I was in so much internal pain and turmoil. It was a time in my life where I wondered if I could die from heartbreak. I know it sounds very dramatic, but I remember laying there thinking, like, I wonder, like, has ever died from this? Because it was that painful. And I just didn't know if I could bear it. And I had a really good friend at the time, and she's a good Southern Christian girl. And she said, you need to give it up. You need to let it go to some kind of higher power and ask for help, because you can't bear it. And that's what I was telling her. I'm like, I cannot bear this pain anymore. And I did. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you, that the heavens opened up and I was suddenly healed. But it was starting then that things became more peaceful. And I was able to start to let things go. And I was able to start to step away from the drama that was still going on with the two of them. And it was just like little by little, just opening myself up to the possibility that there's something out there that could help me.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't one thing that somebody was going to say. It wasn't one self-help book that was going to save me. It wasn't another relationship, which I tried that. It was my spiritual foundation. And over the years, it's grown. And especially when I got sober in 2011, that was another huge indicator that it's working in my life if I just allow it to. So that's, I'm not pro any religion or think that you need to get saved or whatever. And that's what I talk about in the book is have something bigger than you that can help you through those times that are bigger than you.
Yep.
That's really the bottom line of it.
Yeah, I'm exact same philosophies and similar story. Yeah, that's great. So I want to dive in now a little bit of, because my audience is a lot of women entrepreneurs, and I teach about marketing. And so I want to know, like, what has been one of your one or few of your top marketing methods that have helped you to get out there online and build your online community?
That's such a great question. I love talking about this. I think that for me, the biggest thing that helped, and it was also the scariest, was vulnerability, and just really showing people that I am a human being with struggles, and here's where I messed up, but here's the trick though, is that you have to balance it with what you're doing, either what you did to fix it or what you're doing right now to make it better. You don't want to seem like you're a hot mess to your people. And I've seen people do that, and it's like watching a train wreck. I'm like, oh my God, honey, stop. But I just last week wrote about when I was 17 and I had an abortion and how hard it was. And that was really hard to write about. I had never spoken publicly about that. And I had people emailing me and telling me, thank you for that. And it's really about full transparency and some vulnerability. And I'm not saying I think it's not my advice for you to like run out and tell your whole life story, but bits and pieces and how you can have it come out. And that's really how I started. I was blogging for my own therapeutic necessity.
Yeah.
And it turned into this. And, I think that gone are the days of the old school self-help, looking like you're all shiny and up on this pedestal and you have no problems and you have this perfect life. And people know better now. I think that we're under like an awakening, and we all know that everybody has heartbreak and struggles and pain. And that's how we can teach each other. And that's what connects us as human beings. I mean, I don't care if you're a marketer or a dog groomer or a mechanic, like the connection between human beings will always benefit you in your business. Always. We are biologically wired for it. It will never do you harm.
Yep. Yeah. That you hit it spot on. The more transparent, the more vulnerable you can be. That's how you get yourself noticed, because it's so busy online. It's like, how do you stand out, and how do you really get that connection with someone where you get them on, your newsletter list, and it's like they can't wait to open your emails, and they know that every time they hear something from you, it's going to be real, no bullshit kind of information, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think that, I mean, I'm always suspicious of experts out there who paint a picture of their perfect life or only show you the shiny sides.
Mm-hmm.
They don't resonate with me, and they might resonate with other people. I'm not really sure who, but and a few of them come to mind where I'm just like, I wouldn't sign up for your class because like I want to know really. And it's funny, the very first expensive business coach that I hired for one-on-one, there came a time where I think I was having relationship problems, and I usually only came to her for business stuff. And she was like, how can I serve you in this session? I was like, you know what? I want to know, like, tell me about a fight that you had with your husband. Just so because I was over here feeling like I'm never going to make it because, and she started laughing and she told me about one recently and I was like, oh my God. It felt like she had wrapped a warm blanket. I mean, not that I was happy for her fight with her husband, but I was like, you do have a real life and you are a real human being and you made it in business. Like, and you're okay. You're still okay. Like, that's really the connection that I wanted to make. And just because you have shit too, you still made it. Okay, I'm safe.
Yeah. So with your business, did you start out with the brand and the motto that you have now, or like how did you start?
I started in 2007 under the URL Live Your Ideal Life.
Okay.
That's what it was. I know it's very coachy and waterfalls and rocks and butterflies coming out of their cocoon and it's so funny because it was very serendipitous how it all happened. I am not techie at all, and even back then I was worse, and I was trying to, it was like a blogspot URL, and then I was trying to purchase just liveyourideallife.com, and something went wrong, and I was all in a panic, and I'm like, I can't have it, it's all this stuff, and like this realtor in Idaho owned AndreaOwen.com at the time, and so I was all in a panic, and then I was having a conversation with my best friend and colleague, Amy Smith, and that was always my motto, life's too short for it to not kick ass, and she was like, why don't you have something like that as your business name? I was like, I can't have the word ass in my business, and she was like, why not? You swear all the time. Like no one's, because I thought, and I think that this is a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs do, especially female that I've come across is, we're our authentic selves in our personal lives. But then when it comes to our business, we think we need to be different. We think we need to be serious and a little more buttoned up and a little more profesh. And it's not the case. I mean, it really isn't. And that's what I learned. And so I picked it and it just sort of took off from there. It had a life of its own, really.
Yeah, I love it. Well, it definitely stood out to me because I remember coming across you a while ago, and then another girlfriend of mine who's also going through some life transitions, and she was like, oh, here's all the people I've been listening to, and she's like, you have to check out this podcast, and it was you, and I'm like, oh, I know this girl. I'm connected with her on social media, and I just, the brand name stands out really well. And I have to say, like, everybody should sign up for your podcast. Like, it is like the best, like, light you up, no bullshit. Like, your topics are super fun and just real,
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. And they're short too. I try to keep them like 25 minutes max, unless I'm interviewing someone, they go a little bit longer, but I do. I try to, I know everyone's busy and nobody got time for that. So and there's no fluff in there either. Like, I can't stand it when you're listening to a free call or a podcast and, okay, dog, you need to go. She's very sweet. But like when they're, they spend 5 minutes getting grounded and like, oh, and I'm like, no, like I can't. So I jump right in. I give you practical wisdom and advice, and I always invite people to tell me what they want to hear more about. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So everybody, you need to get a copy of this book, 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life. Yeah. And tell them where they can grab this and where they can find more information about you.
It's in all Barnes & Nobles. And if you're in Canada, it's up in Chapters. And I think pretty much where all books are sold. I went to like a religious bookstore out here where I live and it wasn't there. So surprise. I know. Of course, it's available on Amazon and IndieBound. And and if you go, I have a bunch of giveaways on my site if you purchase it and send us the receipt. So just go to yourkickasslife /52 ways, and I'm having a contest where I'm giving away gift cards, and you'll find everything there.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, honey. This was great information.
Thank you so much. I loved being here.
Awesome. Okay, we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.